Hello, this is the Command Post. Russia has held its annual Victory Day parade, marking the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany.
On Red Square. I hope you can hear me over the noise. Thousands of troops are marching past the Kremlin. Now, this is the day that Russians remember what they call the Great Victory of 1945, a victory which was secured at enormous human cost. More than 27 million people in the Soviet Union were killed in what is known here as the Great Patriotic War. And up in the stands, watching this, Russia's President Vladimir Putin with guests, including China's Xi Jinping. The seating plan today, highly symbolic, Putin and Xi side by side, sending a signal.
Vladimir Putin was joined by China's Xi Jinping for the commemorations, with Russia saying 27 world leaders were attending the 80th anniversary event.
Russian soldiers who've taken part in the so-called special military operation, Russia's war against Ukraine.
Today, we are all united by feelings of joy and sorrow, pride and gratitude, admiration for a generation that crushed Nazism and, at the cost of millions of lives, won freedom and peace for all of humanity.
We've seen the soldiers. Now it's time for the military hardware. This is the part of the parade when traditionally Russia showcases its latest weaponry and tries to project itself as a modern military superpower. And yet, even with all of this, Moscow has so far been unable to defeat Ukraine, more than 3 years after Russia's full-scale invasion of its neighbor. And in fact, ahead of this event today, there was quite a lot of nervousness here, a concern that the parade itself could become a target following days of Ukrainian drone attacks targeting Moscow. That hasn't happened. The Kremlin said all necessary measures will be taken to protect the parade. And now for the finale, the military flypast. You know, if Russia has a national idea today, it is one based around the idea of victory. You often hear Russian officials saying now, Russia is unbeatable. It was in 1945. Moscow wants the world to believe it still is.
Security had been tightened after days of Ukrainian strikes targeting the capital city. A 3-day ceasefire was announced by Russia to coincide with the parade, which Ukraine rejected as a farce.
This year's parade stood out in several important ways. Here are 3 things that we have noticed. First, more than 20 foreign leaders were in attendance in Red Square, compared to 9 last year and 0 in 2022, immediately after Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. This shows that Russia's isolation is decreasing as the war goes on, and Russia wants to send a message that it's back on the world stage. Secondly, of the foreign dignitaries present in Red Square today, it was the Chinese President Xi Jinping who received very special attention. Vladimir Putin mentioned China's contribution to the defeat of Hitler in his speech, and also the largest group of foreign soldiers marching across Red Square today were also from China. Lastly, it was clear that this year's parade was held amid tightened security, with authorities restricting internet access and also mobile phone coverage amid fears of a possible Ukrainian attack. Also, a roof was put up above the VIP stand, possibly to protect the dignitaries against a Ukrainian drone attack. It's clear that the ongoing conflict is looming large after 3 years of fighting.
It says Russia has launched thousands of attacks since the truce came into force. Russia denies this and has accused Kyiv of hundreds of violations. Ukraine agreed to a plan for a 30-day ceasefire earlier this week, following talks with the United States.
Now, that feeling seems to be disappearing, and we have dignitaries such as the Chinese President Xi Jinping the Prime Minister of Slovakia, Fico, Slovakia being an EU member state. So this matters hugely for Vladimir Putin. He's really keen to send a message to the whole world that I am back on the world stage.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin has since said he agrees with the idea of a ceasefire in Ukraine, but added that questions remain about the nature of a truce. He also set out a number of tough conditions for peace. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has described Putin's response to the plan as manipulative and called for more sanctions on Russia. Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Following its annexation of Crimea in 2014, and a war has been ongoing ever since. This is the TCP News. Subscribe for more updates on global matters.